I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Delaware Astronomical Society, first meeting of 2021. Let's hope it's better than the last. Let's go for it. All right, so first thing I'd like to do is welcome any new members. Anyone who hasn't attended before, want to introduce yourself?
I'm a guest of Mike Tucker. My name's Fran Jennings.
Hey, Fran.
Hi. How you doing, Mike?
Wonderful.
Good, Fran. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Good.
Mike, I don't think you actually attended our regular meeting before, did you? You can
Oh,
introduce.
I know I've been on a number of different Zoom things. I'm not sure it was a regular meeting or not, or the astrophotography forum or what it was, but I joined as a member last month, I guess it was. So.
Very nice.
And I saw your email said I can invite a friend, and Fran and I, although we've never met in person, we've talked to each other many times on text and emails and Zoom meetings and things like that. And he just retired not too long ago. He's very excited about astronomy. Reminds me of when I was younger, and really getting into it.
That's really
Yeah,
nice. And Mike is, he's going to help us with our beginner programs too.
I'm trying.
He's very good at that.
Any others?
Yeah, I'm Chris Myers. I was actually just browsing the subreddit of telescopes, and I think some guy, Chris, told me to stop by. I'm live outside of Newark now, but I'm actually going to be moving into PA pretty soon.
Awesome.
Just in Landenberg, so I'll still be close by.
Oh, great, very close.
Great, nice.
Very nice. Welcome.
Welcome, Chris.
Welcome.
Hi, Chris.
Any others? I think I'll see a lot of faces who have been here before, so probably not too many others. On the subject of beginners, we have a new education chair. Todd, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. Some of you guys know me. It's Todd. I haven't been to too many of these meetings recently, but I'm looking forward to being the new chair. We got a couple of things we're hoping to do in a post-COVID world. Right now, I'm just out there gathering information, see who's still interested in attending a class. I think I have about 8 people that still have renewed their membership that were on my list. I'll be sending them an email shortly. I'm also still looking for people who want to teach. We're not quite sure the direction it's going to go. A lot of stuff is still up in the air with the whole COVID situation, but we're going to do our best to be prepared for when the restrictions are lifted. So please take a look at the article I have in the focus. If you're looking for something for beginners right away, Mark had found a. Oh, by the way, Mark Jacobini, he's going to assist me, and he's really the brains of the operation when it comes to astronomy and stuff like that. So he's got a couple of good articles in there. One of which is to talk about the Kalamazoo Astronomical Society. They are hosting a beginner event. They've got about 200 people from all over the world. Check it out. There's a link. It's this Saturday on the 23rd about 1 o'clock. So again, take a look. My email is up there. Let me know if you have any questions or any suggestions. We're looking forward to getting this done.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. So both Todd and Mark are gearing up to work really hard to get our beginner programs off the ground and make them really awesome like they used to be. Even though we have coronavirus still going on, they're going to do a whole bunch of work now to get us ready so we can hit the ground running once COVID is over. All right. So next item on the list, I just want to announce for everybody that we do have a new Zoom account. So I'm speaking from it right now, which means we can host our meetings and do a better job of them. We have more features. We still are limited to 100 people, but we still have more features and more people are going to be able to use this account than just me, which is kind of cool. Another point is that—
Is it affiliated with the Club's Gmail account, Rob?
It is, yes.
Cool.
It's affiliated with the Club's Gmail account. Yes. It is registered in my name, but it's the Club's Gmail account. So you should be able to use it. I'll help you if you're interested in doing a session. We just can't run 2 meetings at the same time. All right, next item is board meetings. We decided that we'd like to try having our board meetings on the same night as the regular meetings like we always did before coronavirus hit. That will allow us to do more astronomy workshops and have a lot more fun. So hopefully we can do that next month. We're going to give it a shot. We're going to give it a trial run. This last meeting, last Tuesday, we made an attempt to get a huge number of items into our agenda in just 50 minutes. And we did it. We got through the whole list really well, counted them all out. And so we think that we can do this next month. So we're going to give it a shot.
Yep.
Next.
So, let me just add something to that, Rob. So just pay attention to your emails. It will likely be 2 separate Zoom links, one for the board meeting and one for the main meeting. We might send both links together in one email. It might come in 2 separate emails. Again, we'll see how it goes.
Yes. So to clarify, the reason for that is because it'll make the logistics easier of starting the one meeting, ending the other, and not having it be all confusing. So I think it'll be simpler that way. We're crossing our fingers. We're going to give it a shot. The next item on the list is dues and registration. You want to talk about that real quick, Bob?
Yeah, sure. We're now up to 102 members have renewed for 2021, which is pretty good. You know, if you got an email from me yesterday, it still means that maybe you haven't paid your dues yet. And we'd like to encourage you to pay your dues if you'd like to continue. But I do appreciate all the people that have renewed so far this year. And like I say, 102 people. So.
Great.
All right. That's all that's on my list. Does anyone else have any announcements that we need to get out of the way before we start?
Nothing major. I just want to mention quickly the AP SIG meeting will be on January 30th at 1 p.m. That's a Saturday, and the announcement will go out a couple of days ahead of that on groups.io. That's it.
Well, I think I also said something about the book club. Can someone announce when that one is? Anyone know when the book club meeting is?
I could check in the focus and let you know in a minute or two.
Okay.
It's Thursday the 28th. I'll be sending out an invitation.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Any other announcements before we get started? Nope. All right, Jeff. Your meeting. Go for it.
All right. So this month we have actually 3 topics, 2 short ones and 1 medium length. But maybe for starters, I think even though it's all going to be internal talks and maybe a little more casual, I would still like to follow the same protocol, which is we'll have everybody muted. If there are questions during the talk, by all means, we'll continue to use the chat feature to not interrupt the speaker's presentation. And at the end of this presentation, we'll allow people to go off mute and ask questions directly. So, Rob, if you would, do you want to go ahead and mute everybody?
All right. Well, first, who's going first?
Yeah, I got it. So the first talk is actually a really interesting one for the club. Amazon has a program called Amazon Smile. And it's actually a really, really easy way for you to effectively donate some money to the club with 0 effort and actually 0 extra money in your pocket, as we've all been sitting stuck at home and probably getting 3 or 4 different Amazon deliveries a day. Bill McKibben is going to share for how you can actually harness that to donate to the club a little bit. So Bill McKibben.
Thanks, Jeff. As Jeff just said, Amazon has a program that'll donate money. It's not going to buy us a new observatory. It's roughly 5 cents per, or a half a cent, 0.5 cents per dollar that Amazon will donate when you go through their Smile program. So essentially, it's just like everything you've seen with Amazon, except the Amazon.com is prefixed with smile.amazon.com. I'm going to pull up a PDF file.
And the key thing is the items cost you no more money. This is Amazon basically taking 0.5% and donating it to a nonprofit. So there's really no reason for you to not follow what Bill's about to recommend.
And let's see if you can, how do I share my screen?
Green button, bottom screen.
Green button that says share screen. I'm talking crazy now. Okay, so I put together a PDF file, and I'm trying to make room for it here. I put together a PDF file that I'm going to share with the club, and Rob, I don't know if you want to put it on the website or the best way to distribute it. But it's extremely simple to set up. Most of you, I'm sure, have an Amazon account, and you log into your Amazon account, and when you open up your account page, if you look on the short list, your lists on the left, there's an item called Amazon Smile Charity List. If you click on that, it's going to update your login to show the smile.amazon.com address. From within this screen, you can do a search, but the search will not bring up Delaware Astronomical Society. I don't know why, but what you need to do is go back to your account screen and then look in the column on the right where it says Your Amazon Smile. So if you click into that, it'll take you to a new search screen where they showed some of their featured charities and also allow you to do a search. Simple search for Delaware Astronomical Society will pull us up in the result. You'll see it's labeled as an observatory, so it knows that it's there, knows it's in Greenville. Click select, and that's it. You're signed up. Again, all you have to do going forward is prefix your Amazon.com with smile.amazon.com. I've got it to where I've done it enough times. All I do is type in SM and SMI, and it comes up, automatically through the auto populate. So once you're in smile.amazon.com, all you do is shop the regular way. You'll never know the difference between this and your other Amazon account, and it will automatically donate 0.5 cents per dollar of your purchase. And that's Amazon donating that, not them charging you to donate it. Sure, it comes out of us one way or another, but essentially, if you don't do it, it won't. So that's really all there is to it. Pretty straightforward. I'll see to it that this document gets shared, and that's all there is to it.
Very nice. Thank you, Bill.
Quite welcome.
Yeah, thanks. And, maybe just as a little bit of a feedback, as more and more people sign up with the Amazon Smile through the Delaware Astronomical Society, just, to know what the impact it has, is maybe we could have Bob, every now and again, give us a little update as to how much we've collected. As Bill said, it ain't going to be millions of bucks, but, hey, a couple of bucks here and there, it all adds up, and it really costs you nothing, and it takes 5 minutes of initial effort and no effort after that. So,
nice.
And again, certainly understand if people have a charity they prefer, totally understand that. But if you don't have one currently, really consider setting up the DAS in your Amazon Smile.
Yeah,
So
we
thanks,
could argue
Bill.
that the DAS is more important than starving children, but
Right. Cool.
do what's right for you.
Yeah, and as I said, maybe we'll circulate those instructions to the groups.io. And do we have a blurb in the focus currently about that?
I did not put one in there. We'll certainly put one in next time.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't want to put in like a 5-page document, but maybe what we could do is maybe just put a little blurb, and maybe we could post the instructions on the website, and in the focus, we could link to the instructions on the website, something like that.
There is a blurb in the focus already.
Ah, cool.
Oh, great.
Thanks, Bob. All righty. Any questions about Amazon Smile? All right. If not, our next mini talk will be Mark Jacobini, who is going to be giving a beginner level talk about Jupiter. Mark, all yours.
Okay, it is going to be a short talk. I guess about 3 weeks ago or so, I came across something about Jupiter's moons, and it was actually last fall. I was out observing. I saw a black dot going across the face of Jupiter, and I wasn't sure what it was. It was new to me. I assumed it was a moon or a shadow of Jupiter, of one of Jupiter's moons. So after I came in, looked it up, and sure enough, it was Jupiter's moons. And it was pretty sick to see that. Since then, I've seen the moon and the shadow go across at the same time. I've missed the double transits. I think there was one yesterday. I thought it was the 17th. Thought there was a double transit and double shadow transit, which is pretty interesting. From a beginner's perspective, is interesting. From a veteran's perspective, it could be same old, but I'm just trying to get out there, from me, who doesn't have all that much observation experience. It was pretty slick. I just wanted to pass it along. And Jeff suggested that I go to the app Moons of Jupiter, which is pretty neat. It shows the positions of the moons. It shows the transits. It has a lot of stuff in there. And if I don't fumble this up, I have a live screenshot. Can everybody? Maybe not. Let me go back. Rob and I practiced this earlier, and it was clunky at best. I was doing a lot of stuff wrong. Oh, here we go. Can everybody see that? Moons of Jupiter?
Yep, nice work.
Okay. Well, you see, this is the moons in position. It's for today, and I think it is for the current time. And what you do on the bottom of the screen, you'll see 30 minutes and the arrows back and forth. So you can set an interval between 1 minute and 1 day to see the relative positions of the moons. And as we go, they'll move across. We can do it a day, and we can go back and do it for 30 minutes or whatever. But at any rate, you have the moons are labeled Callisto, Ganymede, Europa, and Io. And in the big full page, this is just a piece of the page. The full page, you can see within a 36-hour time span in one shot. I will show you the big screen, but I can't do it. I'm working off a tablet here, so I have some limitations. There's you can set preferences, set the current date and time, or whatever you want. Just keep in mind that when you use this, you're on UTC. So right now we're -5 in our time zone from UTC. But other than that, it's pretty neat. You can plan ahead. You can go out a month or two. So it's a handy app to have if you like to view those type of things. That you can see some of the occultations of the moons. You can see the shadows, the transits. Real nice program. Again, I'm really at the beginner's level. To me, it's still fascinating. And this is available for Android, and it's on the Play Store. It's free. That's the first one. Now there's others. Sky and Telescope.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Were you saying you were having trouble showing the other view?
Yeah, I have a tablet. I'm set up as landscape.
Would you like me to? I might be able to do it. Do you want me to see if I can flash it up real quick?
Sure. Yeah, you can do a full page. Have any luck? That was.
Does Mark have to stop sharing first before?
All right, let me stop sharing.
Muted if you're saying something.
There you go.
Oh.
That's it.
Are you guys seeing it all right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so this is the other view. Mark, I'll just flash it. I'll let you talk to it.
Okay. At the top, underneath the bar that says Moons of Jupiter is what we were looking at. But it's very much scaled down. As you go down the screen, you'll see the bar, which is the planet, and you'll see the paths of the moons very close to it. And there's a 36-hour spread from now, 18 hours one side, 18 the other. So you can see the positions as they go forward. So if you want to plan observations on that, it's easy to do so. And to get to that, there's the four arrows up at the top will switch you from one view to the other. It's a real simple, straightforward app, but again, unfortunately, it's just for Android. And that's pretty much in a nutshell what this one is. Anybody have any questions so far?
Yes, can you show the shadow transits? And can you automatically move ahead to the time when a particular moon shadow is on Jupiter?
Yeah, so for example, I'm moving, every time I click, it moves 10 minutes at a time. And like, for example, you can see, okay, Io is now is about to be occulted by the planet. And I keep advancing 10 minutes at a time. And actually, interestingly enough, it looks like coming up here, we are going to have now a double transit at this point. I mean, double transit. And this is 121 at 1235 UTC. So basically, and I couldn't find a way to get it out of UTC, so you'll just have to do the math. But yes, you can use this to kind of predict when the moons will go in front of the planet and when they will be behind it, by just kind of jumping ahead back and forward in time.
Jeff, can you open up that screen at the top where you just have the one bar?
This guy?
Next one, the one to the left of it.
The four arrows?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, okay, there we go. So that shows you, that then simulates the double transit.
Double transit, you can see the moon and the shadows.
Nice.
Does that work, Bill?
Jupiter looks like
So
it's got
that's
eyes.
like 7:30 in the morning though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. And of course, Jupiter's down at night, won't be coming back up in the morning good until March or so. I guess it won't be higher in the sky till June. So we've lost Jupiter, but when it comes back, we'll be ready for it.
Yep.
Okay. I have one other.
I'll stop sharing.
Yeah.
All yours, man.
Okay. Bear with me just for a second here. What I want to show you is on the Sky and Telescope site. You can open it up. It's a plugin to Sky and Telescope. You can Google it by putting Sky and Telescope Jupiter's moons, and you get this, which is very much like the Moons of Jupiter app. That bar at the top, you can see Jupiter. There's down toward the middle of the page, you can do a plus 10-minute view or a plus 1 hour view, so you can see the relative motions. It also gives you at the bottom of the screen specific events going on that day. You can reset different times. This it's pretty handy, but it doesn't give you that down bar that we saw in the previous app. Now, this is pretty much if you have a laptop, you have a computer, if you're Windows based, if you can get to the web, this will work on the web. Again, I'm doing it from a tablet from Android, but this does it's iOS or it's operating system friendly to mostly everything. Again, it's free. It's out there. It's just something that Sky and Telescope provides as a service. And the last one, which I don't have a picture of, I'm on an Android, but if you have an iPad or iOS, there's also another that you can get down from the App Store. It's called Jupiter Moon. It's all one word. It's an app just like the first one, very, very similar, but it does cost $2.99. So regardless of what platform you're on, if you have something out by the telescope when you're observing or when you're photographing, and you want to see some of this stuff and plan for it, this is a pretty good way of doing it. Also, the one I have now, the Sky and Telescope, if you have a Mac or a Schmidt-Cassegrain, it gives you that view. If you have a Newtonian or a Dob, and I'm trying to get it to do it, and it's not, it gives you the inverted view, also a direct view. So it's a pretty straightforward, handy app.
Mhm.
Very nice.
Anybody have any questions on that?
Not a question, but it's very good to know. Thank you very much. I do want to mention that you mentioned you're just people say you're just a beginner and you love this view Jupiter. I'm a seasoned veteran and I still love to view Jupiter's moons. I always think back to Galileo in 1610, although a buddy of mine, a good astronomy friend of mine, always had an argument about whether I was 1609 or 1610. That Galileo did the moons of Jupiter, and I've seen things in his own handwriting that says 1610. But I keep on thinking back to, when he viewed Jupiter's moons through his telescope, and I realized that it was almost like another solar system, and then another planet with moons surrounding it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always like to view one on one side, three on the other, two on one side, two on the other, one behind the planet. It's always cool to see things like that. Yes.
Well, this with these little apps, they're really handy. If you're into the Jovian moons, it's a good way to go.
Yes, it is.
Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, and I mean, the other neat thing is, unlike a lot of stuff, you can actually, over the course of just a night, you can actually see the moons moving relatively against the planet, especially the inner moons.
That's
So,
true.
over the course of a few hours, you can actually see substantial change in the position of the moon. So it's fun to follow.
And more significantly, if you have your phone and your scope and you're showing people some views in the scope, you can check real quick and see which moon that is. And you say, you're looking at Europa there. How do you know that's Europa? Well, because I know.
Well, one last comment I want to put on this. Since we're talking about software, I see in the near future maybe a focus article on different software packages, the common ones, to get it out there. Again, it probably geared toward beginners, but it could be some more of the advanced users. They should be aware of it. I would think they are, but they may not be, and we'll try to get that kind of stuff out maybe in one of the issues of the focus, or maybe workshops. If we have, as Todd said, we have a lot of things that we're trying to figure out alternatives for, and the right way to do things that you don't lose people on a phone call. So.
That's a great idea, Mark. And in the meantime, we do have a section on the website that is, I think, listed or geared towards beginners that does list some software. Obviously, it's been a long time since we've looked at it. If members or beginners or experienced people alike have other software that would be really good for beginners, it's nice to keep that list up to date. So
yeah, that's in my job jar. I looked at it the other day, and we want to go ahead with that.
Awesome.
While we're on this, I'm sorry, while we're on the subject, this is Mike Tucker. As I said, a new member. So the newsletter, is that available to download from the website, or do I get that via email?
You get it, Mike, you get it through email. Obviously, we don't have your name on the list yet, but I can get it. Okay. I can get it out to you. Okay. If you remember, are you on Groups.io yet?
I don't believe so. No.
If you can get on Groups.io, you'll get the focus automatically.
Okay.
And if you remember and you log into the website, you can go back into the archive.
Okay.
Remember, you can't. You only can get the current month's focus.
Okay.
But if you remember, it'll open up a window where you can go back in history to pull the old issues of the focus.
Okay. Thank you.
But if you are a new member, you can go to the website and see the latest issue of the focus, and that has information on how to join Groups.io, which is
okay. Great.
One of the key things you need.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
I also heard it mentioned that you have a book club. If I have a number of books I'd like to donate, can I do that? Anyone?
Sure. I'm speaking. This is Jim Barkley. I'm speaking for the book group. I may be the only one on here tonight. Books are always welcome. I don't know just the mechanics of who would take them and so forth.
And we actually do have our no, I don't want to put people on the spot, but we do have our official librarian on the call with us here tonight. Sue, I don't know if you want to say some words or.
That's the best.
But basically, yes, the DAS. It's funny. Probably a good chunk of our members have joined since quarantine, so they've probably never been to Mount Cuba. But the DAS as well as Mount Cuba both have their own libraries.
Right.
I believe a portion of the Mount Cuba library is available for borrowing. All of the DAS library is available for borrowing. So we do have a shelf of books, and there's a list of the books somewhere. I don't know where that's maintained, actually.
It's on the website.
Ah, there we go. So the list of the books is on the website. So once we start going back to Mount Cuba, people can borrow those books. And then, Mike, to your comment, yeah, I would say we generally would be happy to accept donations, and that will get added to our collection.
Right. I have duplicates of certain things and some other ones that are old and I've read many times. So I could donate those. I also, my wife been trying to talk me into getting rid of some framed artwork that I have, and our club, like the Delaware, I'm sorry, the Delaware Valley Amateur Astronomers, we don't have a main meeting place that we could do that too. So I know my other club I belong to, which is Lehigh Valley, and of course yourselves might take a donation like that, but I didn't know if you would even consider that.
So Greg Reaver would be the one to talk to because, you know, he's in charge of the Mount Cuba Observatory. He's
Okay.
the director right now. And
Okay.
so you can talk with him about it, say what you have, and
Okay.
if he's got a spot for it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, one quick comment about Jupiter Moons apps. One of the things that, and you can do basically the same thing in a planetarium program, several different ones. But one of the things that would be very useful if anybody spots this in one of these programs is the ability to say, I want to see the next Ganymede shadow transit, and have it fast forward through 2 months, 3 months, whatever amount of time, and then show you when those transits are. Because some of these transits are actually fairly unusual. They'll come in groups and then they'll be gone for a long time.
So Bill,
Yeah.
you see my screen there?
Somewhat, yeah.
So in the Sky and Telescope app, they have a nice scrollable list of what's coming up. It's not a search feature, but it's a list.
Okay.
And the Moons of Jupiter app has the same function. If you want, I'll share again and show you that real quick. You guys seeing this all right?
Yep.
Yes.
So what's
so
the
this is
exact
that
title? Moons of Jupiter?
This is the Moons of Jupiter app for Android, yeah.
Okay.
And as we mentioned, if you click on this, takes you to that like forecasted simulating view. If you hit
Jeff, you are muted.
Sorry about that. So yes, you get from this view, you hit the 4 arrows, and that takes you to this view, which we were showing before. But then if you go back and hit the 3 dots, there's moon events. And I don't know how far into the future it tells you, but it will list, you know, here's an IO occultation. And then, you know, beginning occultation and ending occultation. I don't know if that might be a setting for how far into the future it does that.
I think there is, Jeff.
Yep. So here in the preferences, moon events prediction 24 hours. I can change that to 300 hours, it looks like. And then if I go back into this,
Woo, nice.
it gives a more comprehensive list.
Mm-hmm.
You know, IO shadow, you know, it talks, here's the IO shadow, Europa transit, onwards and onwards. So,
right.
Yep, very nice.
It's hard to find Ganymede. That's one of that's the biggest one, and it doesn't occur very often. That's the
right. Here we go. Yeah, here's Ganymede on the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
And you notice this one enters occultation at 8:19, exits at, so that one takes like several hours because, like you said, Bill, it moves so slowly given where it is.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
Good
great.
comment, Bill. Thanks for throwing that in there. I'm glad we that's another nice way to look at it. Any other questions about the moons of Jupiter, meaning the app or the actual moons? All right, if not, Mark, thank you very much for sharing that. I'm sure, again, beginners and experienced people alike. I'm with Mike in that I still like looking at the moons and following them and looking for shadow transits and all that good stuff. It's really fun. So that leads us to our next talk, which is our very own Rob Lancaster, who's going to be sharing with us some really cool work. I guess tonight is all about the planets. So some really cool work that Rob did on imaging the planet Mars. Rob, it's all yours.
Very nice. All right, so I'm going to be talking this evening about a project that I embarked on back in the fall of 2020. It's now been a few months, but it was really exciting and really cool. So as I think you all know, we had the Mars opposition on October 13th or so. But before that and after that, Mars was very good for a good while. And so it was absolutely beautiful during this opposition. The weather was like nearly perfect on Mars, unlike the last opposition where it was a complete cloud out. Like I tried during the last the last opposition to take images of it, and I just got fuzz. It was just a complete dust storm on the whole planet. But this time it cooperated. It was just gorgeous. Best views I've ever seen of Mars. And so I produced the things that you can see here. And I'm going to talk during this talk about how I did that. So the first thing I'd like to point out is that in order to image planets, what you're going to have to do is take movies. Because the seeing in our atmosphere is not very good. It blurs the images, it makes them jitter around, and makes it very hard to take a good picture. So what we do is we take very high frame rate movies. We select the best frames of the movies, those precious moments when the seeing is just right. And we get those individual frames that are really, really good, and we stack them together, and then we process them. So that's the way we like to do things. But there's a problem, and that is that these planets rotate. So if you take a bunch of movies over the course of an hour, well, the first few are going to match up, but the ones you take, say, 30 minutes later, it's just not going to match because the planet will have rotated and the features will be in different locations. So you really can't stack together images, even if they're really good, that are more than 10 minutes apart. And depending on which planet you're imaging, that limit changes. Like if you want to image Jupiter, it's 4 minutes because Jupiter rotates in 10 hours. So it's like 4 minutes max. But of course, that limit is determined by you. Like what blurring are you comfortable with? So, you know, you might say that only 1 minute is acceptable. So all the movies have to be within that minute. But I said for this project, 10 minutes was acceptable. But I then was thinking a little more about it. And I was like, okay, well, if I take all my movies within this 10 minutes, and then I come back, say, half hour later, well, Mars will have rotated by a little bit, and I can put the frames together after I do all the processing work, and I could make a time lapse out of these stacks from movies. So I take a bunch of movies, turn them into a bunch of pictures, and turn them back into a movie. So that was my brilliance-ish thinking back in October, and I thought it was going to work so well. Well, we'll get into that. It kind of worked and kind of didn't, and I resurrected it, but we'll see. So I have here a series of frames on a particularly good night. You can see Olympus Mons in this series of frames, and you can see the polar caps, some clouds up here, some clouds over here. But you can notice that the features are moving down to the right as in this orientation. You can see Olympus Mons is heading toward the edge. And on the right-hand side, you can see I kind of put those frames together along with a couple others, and you can kind of get a sense of how it's rotating. But again, it wasn't great. So we'll get into that. So for my astronomy gear, what I used, I have a Losmandy G11 mount, which a number of you are already familiar with because you've seen it before. Some of you may be familiar with my homemade 10-inch Newtonian. I use it more for visual, But for things like the planets, it's actually quite good because it's got a long focal length, it's got a large aperture. So both of those things are going to help to get you more resolution. And in addition, it has a small secondary obstruction, which is going to cause less diffraction effects. So all those things put together mean that you're going to get better resolution on the planets. And then I also have a fan that I installed on the back to try and cool down the mirror so it matches the ambient temperature. That gets rid of some of the seeing effects inside the tube. I also have a 3x Teleview Barlow that I purchased prior to doing this project because I knew the opposition was coming. We talked about these things in AP SIGs a couple times, and I was like, I need to get a better Barlow because I did a couple test runs, I tried it, I listened to what people were saying in the AP SIG, and I upgraded my Barlow to a 3x Barlow. Now, the really cool thing about a Barlow is if you put extension tubes on the back between it and the camera, you can magnify it even further. So I turned my 3x Barlow into a 5x Barlow. And I also have a ZWO ASI 224 camera. So that's a one-shot color camera that can do very high frame rate movies. It also has enhanced IR sensitivity, and there's less seeing in the IR wavelengths. So if you take IR images, they'll have less seeing effects, so they'll be more clear. So you can do IR with this camera, and you can do color with this camera. And I have a couple of filters that I put in front of the camera so that I can say, okay, only let through the visible light, RGB. Okay, only let through the IR light. And so I can switch back and forth between the filters and get different spectra coming through. So my plan was, after I had done a couple test runs, that I was going to set up the telescope about an hour before I started imaging so that it would cool to the ambient temperature outside. I would take 5 to 10 movies of Mars separated by just a couple minutes. Again, not wanting to exceed my 10-minute limit. Each one of these movies would have hundreds or thousands of frames of Mars in them, and hopefully a number of them were good. But yeah, that is 5 to 10 movies, each one containing hundreds or thousands of frames of Mars. Then I would run inside with my movie that I'd taken over 10 minutes, and I'd run all 10 or so movies through AutoStacker. It's very automated, so it's fairly quick in the processing. I'd get 10 different stacks from the 10 different movies, and then I would process them a little bit and save everything on my home server so that I could save space on my laptop. And then I'd go outside after a half an hour had passed and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. So I just repeated this for hours on a particular night. And then anytime a clear night would occur, I'd try and do it again to see if I could get more data. Because I wanted to get a complete rotation. I wanted to get basically every half hour an image of Mars, and I was going to take all the different nights and splice them all together. That was my plan. I'll let you know how that worked out. So
And Rob, how long is the Martian day?
I'll get to that.
Oh, sorry.
I'll get to that. So this is the original movie. This is one example of an original movie. You can notice how much it's jittering, how crazy the seeing is. It's really kind of crazy. So this is what it looked like with the first stack. So remember, AutoStacker selects only the best frames from that movie and stacks them. So this is what it produced. So then this is the image that I had. And then I took 10 images like that, which came from 10 different movies, and I combined them to produce this. So I did a stack of all my stacks. And then I ran it through wavelets in PixInsight and got this, which is fairly good. Not perfect, but fairly good for our conditions here in Delaware. And I mentioned before that my camera can do IR. IR definitely helped. As you can see on the left here, there's a lot more clarity in this image than there is in the one on the right. However, I tried this the first night and I had a lot of trouble because every time I would have to take off the camera, put on the other filter, put it back in the scope, refocus, do it again and again and again. And a few times I accidentally left the filters sitting on the table when I went inside, and they got dewed up. So at least 4 or 5 times that night, I had to get out the hairdryer and dry them off before I could do my imaging set again. So I found it was not very easy. So I decided after that first night, I'm going to figure out something else with this later on. For now, I'm just not going to do IR. So that's a later project. So I kept everything to RGB from then on. So as Jeff was asking a moment ago, the rotation period of Mars is 24.6 hours, meaning that it's about 40 minutes longer than Earth's rotation period. So each night, an hour, the hour a feature is visible is shifted by about a frame. So if I wait, say, 5 or 6 nights, it will have shifted by a whole set, basically. If I can get images maybe every 2 or 3 days, then I'll have some overlap so that I can, be sure that I get decent images. That was at least my plan, is that if I waited a few days, I could take another set of data lasting about, 4 hours or something like that, 5 hours. So you get like 8 to 10 frames, and hopefully there'd be some overlap, just in case you had some bad images. So that was my plan. There's a couple of problems though. One thing I didn't account for is that the times that Mars rises and sets changed extremely rapidly as it was passing the Earth. When I started this project in early October, I was imaging at like 10 to 3 a.m. When I finished this project, I was starting at 6 p.m. and it was over by like 9 or 10. And so that threw off the calculations a little bit and made it a little more difficult to hit my goal. So I really needed to get images every half week or so in order to do this. So I originally made this presentation earlier, so I need to update that title at the top of this slide. But you'll note that over time, the angular size of Mars changes. And for this project, I wanted it to be similar in size. So really, I needed to start before October, and I should have ended in November. But I started like when it was at the peak, and then I worked my way down. And so by the end, it was a little bit smaller, so I had to correct for that. But really, I should have done it somewhere around in here when it was, pretty flat across the top. So I wanted to compare some of my better images. Here's an image from the Hubble Space Telescope on the left, compared to a very similar frame of mine on the right. It's maybe a little over processed, but I wanted to see some of the details and compare them to the image on the left. So you can see the polar cap. It's smaller because this is a different year. So the size of the polar cap is a little more shrunken in mine because it was going into the Martian summer, whereas this one, it was more toward the Martian winter. You can see Olympus Mons also is shifted a little bit as a result of that. It's shifted up in my image. But you can also see Valles Marineris kind of in my image. You can definitely see it in this one, sort of in mine. You can see some of the clouds in both images, and you can see all the details on the surface. Maybe not some of the craters, but definitely the big volcanoes. You can kind of get a sense of them. Now, also when I started this project, I was having a lot of trouble identifying features. Like, is that Maris Serenium or is that Merit? And I was just like, I don't know what these features are. I had a bunch of things that I was using to get that info. Like I had a couple of apps on my computer, had a couple of apps on my phone, a couple on my iPad, found some images on the internet. Nothing seemed to match my images. I just did not like any pictures. It was not working. I couldn't compare them until I found this map. This map is a little bit old. It's from 1973, so it's maybe outdated, but I'll tell you the patterns that were on the surface matched my images much better than anything else I found. So you could, of course, go buy this, or you could click on it and see the image, which is actually fairly high resolution on their site where you go to purchase it. So that's what I did, is I grabbed the image so that I could look at it. So you can click on that, go to their site and see what they have. So you can buy it by all means if you like to, but you can also just look at it on their site. Another point is that some of my images were good enough that I could see the clouds. And I got a couple of images that were spaced out by 2 days and put them in a little animation here so that you can see how the clouds moved between those 2 days. And I think it's actually really cool. You can see some of the clouds drifted to the north here, and these clouds drifted around. It's pretty cool. So my final results after I got enough data, it was terrible. The movie looked just crappy. I was not happy with this at all. So you can see this is basically what it turned into. The images were different sizes. They were different colors. They were different qualities because you just couldn't predict the weather on any 2 nights. It's just terrible. I also missed some frames. So there's some jumps in the movie because either the data was really bad or I don't even have data because it was cloudy for a week. I got most of the rotation. I got most of the images, but I missed a few and a number of them just did not look good. So I was not happy with this at all. So I needed a different plan. So I found a program called Winjupos. So Winjupos is a Windows program that can also be run on Linux and Mac in a program called Wine. A lot of people use it for derotation of their images. So you can try and stack images that were taken beyond that 10-minute interval, and it will try and correct for the fact that the features have moved between the images. So I wasn't trying to do that, but I thought that maybe there'd be a way to use it to make a movie. So I started playing around with it and exploring it a little bit. And I came up with a plan. First, I chose the best images that I took from all different areas of Mars. So I went to all the different sections of Mars and tried to find the best images I had taken. Second, I used something in Winjupos called image measurement to get the images all lined up in size so that they would match in the program. So there's some settings here where you can set the date and time, and you can set the position. You can enlarge or move around this little view of the planet. You can see the features drawn in this little wireframe, and you just kind of line it up until it's as close as you can. Then I used a tool using that measurement that I'd taken to make a map of each one of those frames. So this image measurement tool, it let me get the data to figure out exactly where this frame would go. And then this tool let me turn it into a map. And so I took each one of them and I turned them into a map just like this. And then I combined them using a photo editor. So I used Luminar for this, but you could have also used GIMP, you could have also used Photoshop or any number of image editors. And so I combined them in layers. I carefully deleted parts of Mars until they all matched up and produced a map overall of the whole of Mars. And I think that's actually cool in its own right. So here's my blown up image map of Mars. It's not perfect because again, we were dealing with all kinds of image issues and I'm not sure I merged all these perfectly in the photo editor, but I tried my best. You can see they don't perfectly overlap everywhere, but we're fairly close. And then I used another tool in Winjupos to map this map on a globe. So this was a different tool. It's called the ephemerides tool, and it can map it back on a globe. And there's a little export button right here, which can turn it into an animated GIF. In other words, a movie. And then I got this, which I think came out fairly good. Again, it's not perfect, dealing with all kinds of issues, but it came out fairly good, I think. You can see all kinds of features and details, and you can see the whole of Mars. So I didn't get all my images like I planned, but in the images I took, I had enough of Mars, maybe at the edges sometimes, but I had enough of Mars that I could make a complete map and produced a rotating globe. Any
Rob, I
questions?
like the subliminal image of your copyright notice.
Oh yes, that'll make it difficult for anybody to copy it because they'd have to edit out that frame or something. That was my thought. That might not be too hard, but just giving
That's
them-
really cool.
Any questions?
No, but that's really cool.
Awesome.
Rob, I noticed something. You see coming around near the South Pole, the black lines?
That's
just
an
curious.
artifact from mapping
Yeah.
under the globe. It's probably because of my editing not being perfect. Yeah, this is an artifact.
Okay.
Putting it back together. As I
That's
said, it's not
beautiful.
perfect, but it's close.
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic piece of work.
It really is. Boy, thanks for sharing it, Rob. It's amazing.
Sure.
I've got a question. So because you're taking pretty short videos, can you use an alt azimuth mount or does it still have to be equatorial?
So I can say I've tried that before. During the previous opposition to Mars, I tried taking all my images with a Dob that wasn't equatorially mounted. The problem was that Mars drifts fairly quickly across the frame because you've got to shoot it at really, really high, at high focal length. You got to use Barlows and things like that to really zoom in on it, and it'll just whip through your frame if you get really zoomed in. So if you want to get a decent resolution image on your sensor, you're really going to have to zoom in, and if you do that, it becomes almost impossible to use a Dob.
So I have a what do you call it? Nexstar 8SC, so the tracks. Would that be doable?
So if it tracks and stays reliably on Mars, if you can like zoom way in on it and it still tracks it really well, it should not be a problem because you can correct for the rotation of Mars as well. So it should be doable with that, yes.
And for imaging, do you have a high enough magnification where it would just look like crap visually, but I guess there's enough data that the sensor can pick up?
Well, I wouldn't say it looked totally like crap, but I would say that, yeah, it didn't look great.
Okay.
But you could see with your eye that there was a polar cap there, and you could see Olympus Mons. It just looked like a smudge, but you could see Olympus Mons.
All right, good to know. Thank you.
Yep. Other questions?
Hey, Rob, could you jump back? It was one of your earlier slides.
Yes. Tell me which one.
Keep going. I'll tell you when. In fact, it might just be easier to start from the beginning, but. Yep, there it is. Go next. Sorry.
This one?
Forward. This one.
Yep.
So I understand the stacking and I understand the stacking, but can you explain the wavelets? Because to me, that looks like, it almost reminds me of like when you watch those TV shows and, the CIA guy is, enhance and they have some blurry image and all of a sudden you see this crystal clear image of the, of the spy on the screen.
Sure. So I can say a little bit about that. I don't want to get too technical into it, but I can explain a little bit of it. So basically what you're doing with wavelets is you're looking at the image and you're seeing detail at different scales, and you're enhancing the different scale detail separately. So it's performing like essentially a fast Fourier transform on the original image and looking at those particular details at the different scales and trying to enhance just that level of detail. Because, at a really small scale, it's just fuzz, like the details are meaningless. But at a certain scale, there really is detail there. And at an even larger scale, there really isn't detail there. So, it's different scales, you might have different levels of detail. And it's really cool how that works. And you can select, I want to enhance details of this size. And you can adjust the slider and just move it back and forth until it looks better. And a neat thing about this is the way that they've made it in the software, you just get a set of sliders and you just move the sliders until it visually looks better to your eye. And you're done.
Wow.
It looks good. It's
Wow.
not like, there's no math involved, at least for you.
Yeah.
Doing it all. So the computer can handle all the complex calculations. All you got to do is move a bunch of sliders. Try this slider. Did it make it better? Nope. Move it back. Try this slider. Make it better? Nope. Move it back.
Yep.
You just play with it until you're happy.
Yeah, because I get the stacking and I understand how that enhances it, but the wavelet, the move from your middle image to the right image, that almost seems magical.
It is really cool. I agree. But that's something that we use a lot in astrophotography because it's a very powerful tool.
I think
You
it's
mentioned
similar
that you
to,
did, I'm sorry.
oh, go right
You
ahead.
mentioned that you did that, all that processing on your laptop?
Oh yeah, I do everything on my laptop.
And what kind of laptop is that?
It's an i9 processor MacBook. It's a MacBook.
Aha. MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Great.
Other questions?
I was saying, I think it's similar to sharpening in Photoshop, and different adjustments. You can look at different pixel widths and look for edges. Where in the middle one, the edges are pretty blurry, but if it can see that it looks like there should be an edge there, it'll refine the edge at different scales. And like you said, just keep tweaking it until you get it where you want it.
Cool. And they've actually made a number of programs that use AI to even try and look at it in different ways, like not just trying to enhance contrast at certain scales, but as you said, it can identify edges and bring that into the calculation, and a number of other features as well that really make it pop. Bill, you were going to say something?
Yeah, one thing that's worth pointing out here is that some blurry images like this you can enhance, like the one in the middle, you can enhance fairly significantly because they have a very high signal to noise ratio. If you take another image that looks blurry like this and you can see a little bit of noise in it, very often you can't do very much enhancement on it like this because it'll just turn into a big pile of noise. So it depends on the image you've got and what you've done up to that point as to whether you can get a lot out of waveless sharpening or just a little bit.
That is a good point. It's not magic. Like it can't make an image where there was no image to start with.
Right. You can't pull a rabbit out of your data, but if there's a rabbit hidden in there, you can get it to come out.
I've tried that before where I had bad focus and I took an image and I tried to, it does not work. It doesn't.
All I can say is I think Professor Low is looking down, smiling right now.
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of things that you could do. Yeah.
Although I don't know, because we would have proved that there were no canals. It might have been
That's right, but
Exactly. He's not
Right.
smiling.
I don't know that he's smiling about that.
Hey, Rob, with all of your Barlow and whatnot, the image that you're showing right here, how much of that is cropped from what you had raw?
So it's not as much as you'd think, because with the 5 times Barlow on top of the magnification I have for my scope to start with, it was taking up maybe 20%-ish of the chip size.
Field of view?
Yeah, the field of view, sure.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's.
I blew it up a lot.
Yeah, takes it.
Yep, because it was already a 1472 millimeter focal length scope.
Just for giggles, Rob, would you happen to have one of the raw images just to get a sense of what the scale and looks like?
Just a second.
Not to put you on the spot, but I guess I am.
I have to find it, be on my server somewhere. I think it would be in this folder, and then it'll take me a couple minutes to find.
Yeah, no problem.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah. Actually, Rob, maybe we'll buy you some time. Lou, did you want to say a little bit more? I know we talked about it in the beginning. Did you want to talk about the ISS Transit?
I guess I don't know how many more people had shown up since I talked about it, but briefly, I just can go over it. The idea is when you're doing imaging the transit is just to get good data on the on the orbital elements. So you want to be set and ready, pointed to the moon.
I'm sorry, Lou. Maybe you want to back up a few seconds and preface what you're talking about. Some people might have joined a little later.
Let me share my screen here. Let's see here. Let me see here. All right, can you see my screen?
It's coming. There we go.
There it is.
All right, what we got here? Can you see that?
Yep.
No?
Yes.
Okay, All right, so here's a map. It's really zoomed in tight of where this transit's going to be. It's going to happen during the daytime, but the moon will be high enough that you should have no obstruction in the way to see it. You don't need an equatorial mount, but it's probably best to have one that's polar aligned. That said, if you're going to travel here, you're probably not going to get it polar aligned in the middle of the day. Well, actually, it's almost sunset. But the one thing to make things easier, when you're looking for some place to set up, since it's not nighttime, you don't have to worry about like restrictions. I mean, you can do this in a parking lot. I think this is going to go right through the Target parking lot on the corner of Ridge Pike and Township Line Road. It'll be right down the center. But then, that being said, you got to be really careful to make sure that you set your camera, whatever device you're going to use, to record movie or movie mode, and find the moon. And you want to have that going before the transit happens. And you want to make sure that you leave enough space on either side of the, how long your camera can stay in movie mode, so that you catch it, because it's going to zip past the moon in less than a second. So all you have to do is hold the moon in the field of view with the camera running in movie mode during the time frame that it's supposed to transit. But if you're not polar aligned, it's really not easy. It takes some skill. It's not impossible. It just depends how determined you are. Anyway, so that was that. If you guys want to see, I'm doing a whatchamacallit, the Running Man. Now, here's my setup there. There he is. See him? All right, here's a little treat.
Cool. Thanks, Lou.
Yep.
Did we buy enough time, Rob?
I did find an image that I
All right.
So it took a couple minutes because most of the images that I did, most of the movies that I took were cropped from the start. See, I use a program called Fire Capture. So as I was capturing the images of Mars, as I was capturing the movies of Mars, it was auto-aligning them as I was taking them, and it was automatically cropping them as I was taking them.
Ah, okay.
I had to do a little hunting to find one that was not cropped. Because I don't want to save the data that's not cropped. So I wasn't saving a lot of it. So I do have one though that I found right here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's
that is a substantial part of the field of view.
Yeah. But most of the movies that I took, it was really substantial because it was cropped. I had cropped it something like this.
Yeah. But I mean, the other comment, Rob, is I think this image right here really emphasizes what can happen with the various enhancement techniques, because you go from this, blurry, smudgy, whatever, to a really nice, crisp view in the end.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Bouncing all over the place, smudgy. Sometimes it's nice. Other times it's not.
Cool. Any other questions for Rob?
Just one question. How many, when the software selects the best images and stacks them, does it do it accurately, or do you have to go through and manually throw out some that are
Well, it's
bad?
probably not perfectly accurate, but what I did for this project is I just trusted it. I decided on some settings before I started. Like I decided that for all the movies that I did, I was just going to take 20% of the frames from each movie, and that was it. So I just made that decision before I started and just applied it across the board. Maybe it wasn't the best choice. Maybe I could have done better if I used different settings, but I didn't want to waste a lot of time on that because it was going to be a lot of data. And so I wanted to make a plan and just stick to it.
Worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might emphasize too, when you say a lot of data, a minute is usually like 2 gigabytes, at least on my camera. Okay. So you do that very many times and you do that all night long. And that's a gigantic amount of data.
Yeah.
And you've got to have some place to go with that, you know. So if your hard drive isn't nearly empty, you've got to be able to transfer it to some other drive somewhere.
Yep.
To be doing that all night.
I was keeping about 100 to 200 gigabytes free on my computer as I was doing this. And between every set of data, I transferred everything to the server. So I go inside, process it, stick it on the server, get the next batch.
How large is the drive on your MacBook Pro?
A terabyte,
Ah, okay,
but the server is 24 terabytes.
right.
How fast does that transfer happen though, Rob? I mean, if you're using a regular network, that's not always that fast.
It's pretty fast. It can transfer. I transferred a file just a couple minutes ago that was like, say 500 megabytes, and it did it in a few seconds. It's pretty
You
fast.
have to gig in a few seconds. Yeah, it's very fast.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get like 90 megabytes per second or something like that.
Hmm.
Okay.
But it varies, of course, goes up and down.
Hmm.
Other
And
questions?
that's through a gigabit. That's through a gigabit connection to your server, right?
It's pretty good. I mean, it is wireless, but it's pretty fast wireless.
Oh, you did it wirelessly. That's really good. Then.
It was wireless. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm on 5 gigahertz wireless right now. That's why.
Right. On 5 gigahertz AC probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. And the MacBook has a 3x3x3 antenna built into it, so yeah, it'll do it pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I'm trying to, what planet's next, Rob?
Well, at the moment, I'm taking a break. A lot of the stuff that I did in the fall took a lot out of me, and I've just been taking a break for the holidays.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fortunately for you, Rob, all the planets are on the other side of the sun until the sun.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
Mhm.
A
fine.
little bit.
We'll do Jupiter and Saturn next, right? So
Mhm.
Sounds good to me.
the problem is, we have to wait a few years. They're in the southern hemisphere now, and by the time they come back up here, Saturn will be tilted like this, and we're not going to
Mhm.
see any rings. They'll be really shallow.
That's actually really cool, though, to get an image of Saturn with edge on.
Well, I'm going to try
Really
it
good.
for sure.
That's the next
I-
animation you can do, Rob, is
Yeah.
get a
There you
complete.
go.
Yeah.
Rob, that'll take
Yeah.
14 years.
Yeah. There's your project. You won't have to think of another project for a long time.
But the
Yeah.
good news with that one is it's not like you're out all night every night. That's like, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Go out once a month for 14 years and
Mhm.
got it.
Young.
I guess if you live,
That's actually a cool idea.
Yeah.
well, if you live somewhere else, it might work. Like-
Right.
Tenerife or someplace like that. But here, good luck with
Yeah.
the jet stream. It loves to park over top of our heads.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, I've seen Saturn's rings edge on, but I didn't take a picture of it.
I did. I do have pictures of it, John.
Mhm.
Oh, see, you're on your way.
Yeah, there you go. Missing a lot of data in the middle.
Yeah. Well.
Well, yeah, the Adam Lemma
Can
pictures
try-
got to be pretty famous. So an image like that would be really, really famous.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
We need to pick up and move the club down to the southwest somewhere,
Yeah,
Arizona, New Mexico. Trying to
Yeah.
get my wife to move, but she doesn't want to.
Actually, funny enough, I don't know if the coincidence that you mentioned Tenerife, but Rob, isn't that where one of the Mount Cuba partner observatories is?
It is.
Really, we have an observatory there.
Well, is there someone that can explain it better than I can? I don't really understand it.
Well, my understanding
Is
is
it-
that Mount Cuba has subscribed to this service called SARA, where they partner with a number of other observatories around the world. We get observing time remotely on these different telescopes. So they buy into it and they get observing time.
How is that doled out? I mean, is the moon taken into account? Is there a certain amount of time we have, or
I
you
am
have to
not
pay
sure.
for it?
Yes.
Yeah, so Lou, that's a Mount Cuba thing,
That's
obviously
Mount-
more than
yeah.
a DAS thing. But
Yes.
so Professor Judy Provenchal, who is the UD professor of astronomy and the resident astronomer at Mount Cuba, is the one that kind of owns or whatever that project. She's given a couple of demos at some of the DAS astronomy workshops, maybe 2 years ago or so at this point, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Again, I've totally lost track of time. It might have been 10 years ago for all that. But there's a couple of, there's an observatory in Chile, and then I believe there's somewhere in the Canaries.
Yeah, Canary Islands and Sierra Tololo.
And Kip Peak.
Kip Peak.
Okay.
Nice.
But it is something I almost got the sense, Rob or Bill, she was training us on how to do it with, I think, the idea that we would potentially be able to get some time on it. Again, I don't remember the exact arrangement, but Lou, if you were curious, we could probably get you in touch with Judy, and she could certainly explain it way better than anybody here could.
She was training us to be her assistants and help her with her projects.
Right.
That okay.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
Can we get her to do a Zoom? Can we get her to do a Zoom talk?
Good question.
Yeah.
Check that out.
I tried once to use a service called iTelescope. I'm not sure if you guys heard of that or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're connected to, I don't know, more than a dozen, maybe 24 telescopes around the world. Spain, Chile, Australia, and then California, Southwest there. But the way they work their system is you get a certain amount of points. So you buy points, and each telescope costs a certain amount of points to use, depending on the time of month, where the phase of the moon is, and how big the telescope is. The thing is, it can get really expensive doing that if you want to get a lot of data. I think it was like the points equated to I think it was like more than $1 a point or something when I first did my free trial subscription. I don't even know if they offer that yet, but if anybody else has any more insight, I'm curious to see if there are
it seems very expensive on the surface, right until you ask yourself the question, how much is it going to cost me to put a telescope there and operate?
Right.
Then it's suddenly very cheap.
Well, sure.
But Bill, how about how expensive is it to put an astrophotography rig right in your own backyard?
Yeah.
It's a little cheaper.
It's a little cheaper. It's on a per picture basis if you do a lot from your backyard, absolutely. But if it's something you wanted to shoot from the southern hemisphere, sometimes those remote telescopes are great for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about the Sarah program with the one observatory being in Chile is
Yeah, I can never get good data on low objects. The Sombrero Galaxy, I really want to get that, but it's in the muck.
Yeah.
Was that
coronavirus ends, we'll be able to have access to that program again. Ron?
Lou, was that thing?
Hey, it might
called
even be SLU is another service.
SLU is another
Yes.
service, yeah. I don't know how expensive they are. I did it for a little bit, but anyhow, Bill was saying, it checked the cost of how much it's going to take for you to fly down with some of your equipment to do the same thing. It may be cheaper to do it that way.
Yeah, I already have my stuff here. So unless one of you guys wants to give me cash money to buy everything, pick it up out of my backyard. I'm kind of stuck using it. Yeah, you want to buy observatory?
But the SLU I tried before, and I don't remember it being, it's a certain amount a month that you pay to belong to it at different levels, at different amounts of time, and then you take turns.
Hey, watch this full circle comment. everybody hooks up their Amazon Smile to the DAS, maybe we can get an observatory in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
A half a
I'll
penny
volunteer
each
to
time.
maintain it.
Gotcha. Cool ideas. All right, I think we're all finished, Jeff. I don't think I have
Cool.
anything else.
Yeah,
Alright.
just any final comments, final questions, comments for any of the speakers or any general questions?
Actually, I have a general question since we're talking about computers also. I'm in the market to buy either an iPhone 12 or 12 Pro. Anybody have either one of those?
No.
No? Okay.
Eh,
All I asked.
You get to be the guinea pig, Mike.
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of videos and they all pretty much say the same thing. It's up to you.
Isn't that the one where they can take astrophotos with the phone?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The low light is unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
sounds interesting.
And the processing built into the phone too is just incredible. Yeah.
Cool.
So either the 12 Pro or the 12 Pro Max, I'm thinking about getting if my wife will let me.
So if you get that, you got to bring them to the AP Sig.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Show us.
with that, I don't know if people want to linger and hang out a bit more. I guess it's all on Rob's patience that continue to keep the Zoom open. But let me just interject and formally close out the meeting and give a big thanks to Rob and there's Mark and Bill McKibben. Big thanks for sharing today. It was all really great stuff. Thank you for everybody for joining us again. And just a couple of reminders. We are every single Tuesday having our astronomy workshop starting at 7 o'clock. Starting next month, we will be holding our board meeting and main meeting at the same night, the way we used to do it back in the good old days. And the final reminder is the second Tuesday of every month, the CCAS club has been inviting us to their talks. So I will be sending out or forwarding on their Zoom links. And the full schedule of the CCAS talks is in the focus. So you can take a peek and see if there's something that grabs your attention there. It was awesome. I attended it last week. It was a good talk. And I think I saw a bunch of you in there as well. So that's working out really, really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I thought it was great.